Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today we are talking about a ship that I was very much wrong about when she came out. And that is the Tier 8 Premium German Battleship, the Brandenburg. Now, why was I wrong about the ship when she came out? Well, I wasn't that impressed with the Brandenburg upon her initial release because me, of all people, I didn't fully trust in her secondary battery, which I know many of you are going, Sealord, how could you not do that? You're like the secondary guy. Yes, I am. But you see, my dilemma with the Brandenburg is that she is essentially a Bismarck slash Tirpitz, I guess you could say really a Tirpitz, with 12 305mm guns instead of the 15-inch guns that the Tirpitz and Bismarck comes with, and a few more secondaries bolted to her deck. Now, a massive drawback, of course, is that she has smaller guns than the Tirpitz and Bismarck, meaning that, well, you don't get quite as much overmatch, and with the accuracy of the guns, you don't really do that well with getting, a large number of your shells on target consistently, so you kind of want to fall back on your HE. Now, German HE already isn't that great from the aspect of alpha damage. The shells tend to have a much lower alpha damage rating than similar shells do at the same tier, because they get a better penetration in exchange for that, which is one reason why the German secondaries are quite good in most cases. However, with the Brandenburg, the secondary guns are mostly made up of 105mm guns, meaning that if you want to get them up and over that 32mm threshold, you need to take IFHE. Now, the downside to IFHE is that yes, you get the improved penetrations, but that comes at the cost of fire chance. It cuts your fire chance in half. So, in my mind, I was looking at the Brandenburg. I said, okay, you have small main battery guns for the tier, well, really for battleships in general. You have a bunch of secondary guns. But if I want to get the secondary guns up and over 32mm, I have to take IFHE, which then absolutely murders the main battery gun's ability to really do much damage at all, because you already have such a low alpha damage rating. You're giving up half of your fire chance in order to get the secondaries out and about and doing their thing. So I didn't want to put an IFHE secondary build on my Brandenburg when I went and tested her for the first review video that I did on her. However, I thankfully came around to the truth of Brandenburg in that, well, if you're going to do something, you might as well go all the way with it. And then I turned around and slapped an IFHE secondary build on my Brandenburg. In fact, the exact IFHE secondary build that I have on my Schlieffen. And wow, this thing is an excellent, excellent secondary ship. Now, I did that quite some time ago. Why am I talking about the Brandenburg today? Two reasons. One, we played it on stream last night for quite a bit, and I had quite a bit of fun in it. Two, you can actually get this thing right now in the Black Friday event. You get the Brandenburg B at a discounted price. So you have the potential to get a really good premium ship here for less than what it would normally run you in the premium shop. Now, do you want to do that in 2024? That's what this video is going to be about. If you can't tell, obviously, yes, the ship does have some very strong bits going for it, for my little intro bit right there. But is it really worth it in 2024 beyond just being a good brawler? Now, the first match you'll be watching in the background is a Tier 8 game, where, the Brandenburg is, well, the Brandenburg. It's able to do its things. It is, kind of a one-sided match, but you can see the Brandenburg secondaries do their things alongside the armor of the ship. Be pretty dang good in this situation, although the second video, actually, in my opinion, gives you a better idea about the armor because of, well, it being a tier 10 game and how much damage the Brandenburg is able to take and, well, not sink, right? But anyway, what is the Brandenburg in more detail? Well, like I said, it is essentially a Tirpitz or a Bismarck, depending upon who you want to, go off of, take a look at it in comparison. that has some changes made to it. So first thing you'll notice is that the Brandenburg and the Tirpitz, the Brandenburg sits slower in the water than the Tirpitz Bismarck does. That's what bolting some more armor and a bunch of secondary guns, a bunch of extra secondary guns will do to your hull, right? So she sits lower in the water, and that's a big weakness for, well, most of the German ships, most of the German mainline battleships, I should say. They do tend to stand up out of the water. The more freeboard you have, there's more real estate there for shells to hit an arm onto, and the more damage you'll take. So she's got that going for her right there. On top of that, her main belt is actually quite a bit thicker than the Tirpitz and the Bismarck. So you have a thicker belt armor there, which means, obviously, again, more shells bouncing. And you have a thicker icebreaker bow, too. Well, thicker in terms of, like, it's physically larger than the one you'll find on the Tirpitz or the Bismarck. So that is very nice when you get up tier to tier 10. Because that 60 millimeter icebreaker bow is just a giant middle finger to, those 460 millimeter and above shells that would normally go right through that 32 millimeter bow. And again, this is a ship that can see tier 10, right, and probably will quite regularly because of tier 8 matchmaking. And you got the Yami, Musashi, the Shikishima, and Comparable, all within its matchmaking bracket, right? So that's a lovely bit of armor to have right there. Now, that does come at the cost of a lower HP pool. The Brandenburg does have 58,000 and change HP compared to the Bismarck and the Tirpitz, which are both very much in the 60,000 range, right? So you do trade a little bit of that for, the improved armor, but in my opinion, it is very much worth it. And like I said, you do get more secondary guns. You get more than 105 millimeter secondary guns. And again, you can get the secondary range out to the same as the Tirpitz and the Bismarck at 11.7 kilometers. So you have more secondary guns, more main battery guns, but smaller main battery guns. And you still get the torpedoes, you get the good armor, and you get the maneuverability of the Tirpitz and Bismarck all wrapped into one package. And that is a package that is pretty dang satisfying to play when you are, well, at tier 8, right? When you're at tier 8, in most cases, you will be able to get into secondary range and get doing your thing fairly reasonably well in the Brandenburg when it's a tier 8 game, right? Because you're playing with tier 7, tier 6 ships. Those engagement ranges are so much closer than obviously the higher tier games. But the higher tier games, the games that all of us, despise getting stuck in when we are playing our tier 8 ships, those are pretty rough, right? And any tier 8 battleship is really going to have a hard time keeping up in a tier 8 game. And the Brandenburg is no exception to that. But you do have the HE to fall back on. Now, you might be thinking, Sealord, you just spent a couple of minutes talking about how not great the HE is. While it's true it's not great, it does have some things going for it. First off, you are throwing 12 shells at the target. And yes, with taking IFHE that halves your fire chance, that does hurt it. But you're still throwing 12 shells at the target. And that gives you a pretty good chance of, well, actually getting some fires on target. Is it a great chance? No, but it will still happen is what I'm saying. And with IFHE, the already good HE pins of the 305mm shells are even better, right? So when you are playing against those higher tier ships, you are very much going to be able to pin, their deck armor, their extremity armor, and definitely their superstructure armor with those HE shells. And oddly enough, the terrible dispersion that you'll find on the Brandenburg when you go for a full secondary build, it actually kind of helps with the fires because there's 4 fire points on every ship, 3 if they take fire prevention. There's 1 on the bow, 2 on the superstructure in the middle, and 1 on the stern. If you are physically coating the entire ship with your HE shells, then, well, you have a better chance of setting more fires in separate places on the ship in one salvo, or, you get like 1 or 2 turret shells to hit the ship, but again, they're spread all over, so you get a couple of fires in different parts of the ship versus, just drilling all your shells into the superstructure and getting the 1 fire there. You might get 2 fires. Again, that's very, very much RNG based, but it does happen, surprisingly so. So the HE does actually let you hang in there fairly well by tier 10 standards, being double up tiered in a tier 10 game, right? So it does reasonably well in those cases, and the increased armor does definitely help you stick around in those cases as well. Again, most Tier 8 battleships are going to have a bit of a struggle, right, keeping up with Tier 10 games, but the Brandenburg can very much do it, right? It's not something that's impossible. So you've got that going for you. Also, you don't have to put a secondary build on the Brandenburg. I would recommend it, but you could very much go with a main battery gun build. You could take the dispersion mod, build into your tankiness instead of building to your secondaries with the commander skills, and you have a really tanky battleship here with lots of 305mm guns with German AP. The AP is very good because it's German AP. You know, it's got those flat arcs. It's got that high alpha damage. It is very nice AP here on the Brandenburg. So you can build into it in terms of its survivability and tankiness and into its main battery guns. And it's not bad at that either. It's kind of like a Tier 8 Mecklenburg. Like I was talking about with the Anhalt, right? You can very much play it like a Tier 8 Mecklenburg, but still have the option to build into secondaries. I mean, most of you German players out there, you probably have 2 German battleship captains set up, right? You probably have Lucians with your secondary builds, and you have somebody else with your main battery gun builds. You could 100% do the same thing here at the Brandenburg and just keep swapping them off and changing the modules out, and you have a ship that can do one of 2 things. Where the Brandenburg really shines, though, is in, of course, ranked and brawls. Because, like we talked about before, Tier 8 ranked and Tier 8 brawls, it's a much different animal from random battles, right? Because it's a lot more, close quarters, a lot more you having to, carry your team usually, again, in those close quarters, small format battles. The Brandenburg is an excellent choice for that. You get the great armor, the secondary guns, the torpedoes, the maneuverability, all in one package. So she's a very nice pickup, in my humble opinion, for anyone that's looking for a Tier 8 ship that is excellent at ranked and can also still do pretty well in today's random battles world. Like, again, if you get a Tier 8 match in the Brandenburg, you're going to have a pretty solid time, unless, because it still does happen. You get one of those matches where everyone just sits around in the back of the map for forever, but, I mean, that's at pretty much any tier now in World of Warships. But in most cases, again, when it's a true Tier 8 game, you're going to have a pretty fun time in the Brandenburg, from my experiences at least, right? So it's on sale right now. You can pick her up for $35 in the Armory in the Black Friday event, which, I mean, that's 30% off of a Tier 8 premium ship. That's pretty good. I mean, there's tons of ships for Germany that you can, use this ship to train commanders for, move commanders on and off of between her and other premium German ships, right? So she's a really solid pickup, in my opinion, for this Black Friday event if you haven't picked her up yet. Obviously, I would still go for like the Massachusetts first, right? Because she's removed. But if you already have the Massachusetts, maybe looking for another ship, or maybe you don't want the Massachusetts, Brandenburg might be more your speed. So I recommend you check her out. And think about picking her up, again, in my opinion. So, guys, let me know what you guys think about the Brandenburg in the comments down below. Do you think she's worth it in 2024? Do you think it's a hard pass? Let me know all that jazz in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Saturday, wonderful rest of your weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.